All right, everybody, welcome back. We are on today for another 20-minute pop-up. Super excited to have my friend Mike here. Mike is a guy with just a ton of experience in all aspects of real estate, everything from probably single families up to multifamilies and raising money. Had a vast career, lots of ups and downs. And yeah, Mike, super excited to have you here and have you on the show.
Hey, David, thank you. I appreciate it. I know I've been waiting for this for a while, and it was good connecting with you before this show.
Yeah, for sure. So, for those that don't know who you are or haven't maybe seen you or come across you before, give us just like a little bit of a background, just kind of who you are, where you came from, and we'll kind of work up to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep this real short. So, been in the real estate space for 30 years. Prior to going into real estate, I had a general contracting business where you're
Mhm.
building residential room additions.
Okay.
Uh, Very entrepreneurial all these years. I went into residential. My first 9 months in the residential business, I sold 78 single family homes.
Whoa.
Went on to build a team selling 125 houses a year, did that consecutively for about 12 years, and then went in the apartment business in 2005.
Wow.
2005, I syndicated. Syndication is just a fancy word for partnering with a group of investors and
Mhm.
having investors put capital in our deals and sharing the profits with us.
Yeah.
And I syndicated my first deal in 2005. I built $100 million company in 30 months. We owned and operated 4,000 units in 5 markets
Yeah.
around the country and had a property management company managing 7,500 units.
Wow.
Uh, this was prior to 2008. And
Yeah.
in 2008, the world went to hell in a handbasket.
I was there. I remember.
We
It was
got
bad.
got wiped out. I made some mistakes along the way, and really for not being transparent and not disclosing to my investors the movement of money from profitable to non-profitable
Mhm.
companies, trying to keep the whole ship afloat.
Yeah.
I wound up on a 10-year federal prison sentence
Mm.
and went off to prison and lost everything. And
Wow.
a lot of people, David, at that point would think, man, my world is over. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I went and reinvented myself. While I was gone, I wrote a couple of books. I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree. I wrote an ethics course. I taught real estate investing and property management for 6 years in prison. I was on an outreach program, went into the community and told my story to small business owners. I wound up writing a paper that got published in the Business Journal of Ethics, gets taught today at the collegiate level for forensic accounting and sales and marketing classes. When came home, thought I was just going to go in the coaching and training business, which I do. I teach
Mhm.
people how to syndicate multifamily deals, whether it's a 2 unit or a 200 unit deal.
Yeah.
And uh, along the way, doing my first deal being back, my securities attorney said, "Hey, I think I can get you approved by the SEC to go back and do this legally," and she did. So I'm
Nice.
back today doing exactly what I absolutely love to do and helping other people do it.
Right. That's amazing. That's a fascinating story. So I love that you were able to scale up a business so quickly. What were you doing before you got into doing additions and contracting? Or did you just like was that where you started?
I worked. It's kind of funny you asked that question. I was just telling somebody about this yesterday. I worked for a guy who, he was a contractor. We actually built swimming pools.
Okay.
And I can remember sitting in his office one morning thinking to myself, man, I am smarter than this guy.
Yeah.
And I could go and do this. And, a week later, I quit and started a construction company. And I went and hired a couple of really smart carpenters, and I
Hmm.
went out and I did the sales and marketing, and I built that business from nothing to
Yeah.
building 25 room additions a year, which I
Wow.
sold several years later.
That's an important thing. And one of the things that struck me when I went to my first real estate meeting is I was watching these people on stage talk about deals that they had done. And I'm like, that's amazing. But these people don't seem that smart. They're not, I mean, I'm not the smartest guy, but feel like I'm definitely smarter than them. And, I think there's a lesson for people to learn there that, you are more than capable. You don't need to wait until you have all of the answers, that you can go out and you can hire some great people to work for you and support you. But it's just having the courage to take that leap and go out there and, and take that first step and, build your own future.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So doing additions and then you're building a ton of single families, like what made you want to jump up into the syndications and the apartment buildings and that large, I mean, that's really stepping up, in the monopoly board, going all the way up to apartments and stuff.
Yeah. So, I had built a pretty successful team.
Yeah.
And we were doing 125, 130 houses a year. And 2005 came around and the market started to soften. And, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I knew something was happening. You
Yeah.
could kind of feel it. I'm a big
feel it.
energy guy. And, you could feel it in the air. And I said, man, something's going to happen. And, I had some people working for me. I had 7 or 8 people working for me at the time. And I was like, I don't want to have to fire anybody or let anybody go, but I know I'm not going to sell 100 houses this year.
Yeah.
And so I started to, I had always wanted to be in the apartment business. When I was in the construction business, I did a lot of work for a couple large apartment syndicators in the Chicago market. Mm-hmm. And I understood the model, right? You raise private capital from individuals, you marry it with a great real estate deal, you stay in the middle, and as long as everything goes well, everybody profits from it. Well, I thought it was that simple. But when I did my first deal and I jumped in, and the first time somebody said NOI or cap rate or yield maintenance, I was like, whoa, stop what does all that mean? And so I had a learning curve along the way and I had to learn. But I absolutely love the business. It's in my DNA. It's who I am. People have said to me, why do you keep doing what you do? I said, because I don't know how to do anything else. What else am I going to go do? I'm really good at it,
Yeah. So how did you overcome those hurdles? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, whether they're trying to do their first wholesale deal or buy their first house or, put together a large syndication like that. Like, what were the steps? Like, when people came back to you and said NOI and all the, cap rate and all these other things, like how did you push through that? What was the mindset?
Remember, this was so long ago that you couldn't even go to Chat GPT or Google and say, what does this mean? Right. Yeah. I continually educated myself. I'm a question guy. So I ask a ton of questions. So attorneys, brokers, other people in the business, I sought out, I sought out other successful people that were doing what I did and just kept learning. If I had it to do all over again today, I would have got a coach right away.
Right.
Because coaching's a big buzzword and people don't want to pay the money for it, but you know what? Go get a coach because that's somebody who can help you stay accountable, stay on track, build your business. I've had a personal coach in my life for over 20 years and I've learned a lot. They've helped me stay accountable. They keep me engaged and I'm an action taker. So I just kept taking action. I kept learning along the way. Action taker, risk taker, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think there's something in the DNA of successful entrepreneurs that, we're just okay with a little bit of risk. We're okay with, running that bank account down to $1 and taking the money and, and putting it into something that's going to move our business forward. So fascinating. So was all of your building primarily, you're in Huntington Beach, California now in California, or were you doing this all over the country?
Yeah. So we were in 5 markets. I bought my first multifamily deal in Chicago and realized I wasn't going to make any money there. And remember, this was 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
And the market was kind of robust, bubbling, right? But everything was priced so high. So I started to look at markets where pricing was better, where I could still achieve a good rent. And so we wound up in Alabama.
Yeah.
Had a big portfolio in Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth market, the Ohio Valley. and Indiana.
Nice.
So it was all outside, and plus I hate snow. So
Me too. I grew up in Boston. I hate it.
yeah. And I wanted to be in markets that I didn't have to deal with snow. And that's kind of what I do today too, is I don't do a lot in markets where I have to deal with snow.
Yeah, I feel it just there's no pressure on the market because most people aren't moving from California to New York, right? There's no influx of people there. You have natural population growth, but where the growth, the pressure on the market is in really the Southeast, because so many people are coming down here, whether it's the weather or the great states with no income tax or anything like that. So I'd agree with that. So fantastic. So you're doing stuff. You made a couple mistakes. You definitely paid for that. But like when you came out, as far as getting it all restarted again, another just challenge, just mindset challenge, right? Like what was that like?
Yeah. So, when I was in prison about 6 weeks, I had a guy walk up to me, and David, I think that we're all faced with defining moments in our life.
Sure.
And this was one for me. But I'd gone from running marathons to being 35 pounds overweight. I hated myself.
Yeah.
My wife divorced me. My kids didn't talk to me. I always tell people, I say, hey, I never flew private. I didn't have a boat. I didn't have a big car. I didn't have a fancy house. I was the neighborhood baseball coach. I was home every night for dinner. And I got ripped from that to live in a 12 by 12 room with 3 men I didn't know, nor did I like.
Yeah.
Wondering what the hell happened in my life. And this guy walks up to me one day, and, I'm worried about how I'm going to get through today, much less 10 years of this. And he says to me, don't let these people beat you. All they want to do is take everything from you. They can destroy your business. They can take your family. But what they can't take is who you are and what you're made of. He goes, you can go back and build that business. You can go build anything you want. You're smart enough and you have the internal drive. He goes, what you have to do right now is work on yourself. None of us grow professionally until we grow personally.
Right.
And it clicked for me at that point. And he said, come to my class every day, start working out. You'll start losing weight. You'll start feeling better. I said, okay. And I don't know why I said, okay. Even today, I have no idea. But, it's that defining moment, right? You can go this way or this way, but you make the choice. So I chose to go in this direction. And, I did. I started losing weight. I started to feel better. I started to reinvent myself. I wound up going to college. I got a 4-year degree, a bachelor's degree in theology. I wrote 2 books. I wrote an ethics course. So I just kept taking action and doing the next right thing and kept learning and reading and building into myself, so that when I came home, I had something to give other people,
right,
and to serve other people. And that was my goal. And I did. I came home, I went in the coaching and training business.
Wow. And I think that's so important. All of us, I was speaking to somebody earlier today, and you can only make so much money. At some point, your desire should be to want to give back to other people. So I think that's probably why, we do a lot of what we do, and you do what you do. So let me ask you this, because this is something that I get a lot of questions on, as somebody who's been in the real estate business world for, through a couple of cycles now. What are you seeing as, kind of the biggest differences? Do you feel like we're in a big crash? Do you, what are some things that you think people should be doing right now?
Yeah. So, this is a big conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that we're at the bottom of the market cycle. And I told somebody yesterday, I said, it's like being a stingray in the ocean and just gliding across the sand, because this thing is going to come out, and it's going to come out really fast. And are you somebody who is going to be positioned in front of that bull run and take advantage of the upswing?
Yeah.
When you look at the differences between 2008 and where we are today, today there's a lot of equity in the market. In 2008, there was none. Everybody was upside down, right? That's a huge indicator. If you see what's happened over the last couple of weeks, the stock market has fallen. We've got the upset in China. We got the tariffs going on. And the Fed's come out and said that they're going to reduce interest rates 5 times this year. This market is shifting.
Yeah.
And, this is the time in history when everybody normally says, man, I can't wait till that happens.
Yeah.
I'm going to take advantage of it the next time it happens. Well, this is your turn to take advantage of it. Whether you're a private investor looking to be involved in a syndication, this is the time. Whether you're an active investor learning how to do the business, whether it's, wholesale, single family, apartment business, this is the time to get involved, right? Because if you can position yourself today in front of the next bull run, which is going to start happening here, we're going to see one of the biggest redistributions of wealth this country's ever seen.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, do you have the tolerance to take advantage of it and go through maybe a couple of months of ups and downs here to be really successful through the market cycle? I always tell people, David, there are no geniuses in this business. There's only market cycles.
Right. Yeah. We talk about what we really we were flipping houses in the early to mid 2000s. And then, 2010, 11, 12, we just started buying a ton of properties, but only the ones that made sense. And I talk about, deals that we didn't buy. And, people are like, well, why wouldn't you buy that? You could have taken over or assumed these mortgages, whatever. You could have done all these things. I'm like, well, listen, when you're in the middle of the tornado, it doesn't seem like the greatest of times. Looking back in hindsight, it always looks fantastic. But, we were at least taking action and, trying to make the best bets that we could. And my goodness, that, portfolio is, 5x in value. So I agree with you. I think we're really poised for some big things here in the next couple of years. And then, of course, you've got just the silver tsunami, as they say, where, so many people are want to downsize and get out of these houses that those houses are going to be coming on the market. So I think there's just a ton of opportunity.
Sure. I agree.
Yeah. So what, I know you wrote a book. In fact, I've got that here. Tell us a little bit about the latest book that you've got.
Yeah. So this is my third book. It's Multifamily Investment Secrets. It's your guide to explosive wealth in the multifamily business.
Love it.
This is years of experience. I teach people how to go do the business. Nice. I tell some stories in here about other investors that have been clients or have done the business themselves over the years, the successes they've had. I talk about a large multifamily 400 unit deal that I did creative financing on.
Love that.
Listen, I've done creative deals on 4-unit deals, single family deals, 60 unit deals, 200 unit deals, 400 unit deals. So I talk about a specific deal in here that's been very successful. It's an Amazon bestseller. I'm super proud of it. And, I think it's helped a bunch of people. I talked to a guy yesterday who said, man, I'm still reading your book. I said, yeah. I said, how is it? He goes, man, I think it's great. So I don't know.
Love it. I think that's so important. Everybody learns a little bit differently, but to have a physical book in your hand that you can look at and keep going back to for reference and underlining it and highlighting it. I think it's absolutely amazing. So I would encourage everybody to get it. I'm certainly going to order it as soon as we're done here. But, so I would imagine in this book, you take people through a progression of what is multifamily and how you can get into that business. And it doesn't have to be the 500 unit apartment complex.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And you can order it, multifamilyinvestmentsecrets.com.
Okay. And, oh, really? You can get it right there.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. All right. And before you go, I know people are fascinated with your story. What about like the coaching? Where would somebody go to either follow you or to get information on that?
Yeah. So listen, I'm anywhere you hang out on social media. So you could go to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And I'm always trying to bring out great content, right? I have great speakers on my podcasts and I do a lot of interviews because there's a lot of people smarter than me. And I love to be in those rooms with people smarter than me. So you can go connect with me on social media, like me, love me, follow me, whatever. But if you want to connect directly with me, send me an email at at MikeMorawski.com.
Okay.
I love to network with people. Tell me where you're at, what you're working on, and I'd love to see if I can help you.
All right, cool.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, I think that's awesome that you would give out your email. A lot of people won't do that. So it goes a lot to show who you are and how much you want to help people. So Mike, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do it again and dive deeper into more things.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.